So Nalyssa Smith is an interesting player, and I saw a video that's not gone viral, but like it's being shared around from Convos with Carter. Basically, it's a video saying that the Indiana Fever have an Nalyssa Smith problem, and I will leave a link to his video in the description because, look, with the way YouTube is, I don't want to be an alternative for his video, but I do want to give my input on the situation and what the thing is with Nalyssa Smith and the Indiana Fever. And before we get onto it, if you guys are new to the channel and you guys agree with this take, or even if you disagree with it, subscribe. We are currently on, I don't know how many subscribers. We're currently on 25,487. We are 13 away from 25,500. If we could hit that by the end of the day, that would be insane. But Nalyssa Smith, there is a big problem, is that Nalyssa Smith is a good player. She's a really, really good player. But the problem is she is one of those, the players that when they're not the number like 1 or 2 option, they're just not good. That's the problem with Nalyssa Smith. Nalyssa Smith, we've seen in the offense that in the half court, you can't play with double bigs if Caitlin Clark's on the floor. So you can't play with double bigs with Clark there because Aaliyah Boston is the better roller. If she was a better pick and roll player, because Aaliyah Boston can shoot it a little bit, she can spread. But the problem is that her being on the floor means players can help in. And it's not even that she's a bad three-point shooter. She shoots 34% from three. It's that she's the longest wind-up for a shot ever, so players know they can recover. As well as that, she does not move well off the ball. Nalyssa Smith moves terribly off the ball, but she is a bailout option. That is the only thing she does well in the half court, is sometimes you throw her the ball and she does something good. Because skill-wise, Nalyssa Smith has the potential to be an all-star. No doubt about that. I don't think anyone that has been watching any of these Fever games will tell you that there are not times where Nalyssa Smith looks unplayably good. On the offensive end, she doesn't cut well. She stands in weird positions. She allows her man to help and recover, always be able to recover. Her release is a little bit too slow. She can't shoot the mid-range shot because her release, even though she's a good shooter, her release is too slow. Other than the one game where she was 1 of 7 from the free throw line, I actually don't think she's been that bad from free throws this season. And her finishing is either unbelievable or unbelievably bad. But the big issue with Nalyssa Smith is just fit. It's just fit with Caitlin Clark. I wish I could show some clips. Again, copyright reasons, I cannot risk it. I do apologize. On the defensive end, she has no idea what she's doing. And the problem is, again, there are multiple players in the Fever that are bad defenders. That are just bad. And some of them are decent aspects of defense. Nalyssa Smith is a mediocre help side shot blocker. Caitlin Clark has really quick hands and has a good nose for the ball. She can't stay in front. Well, not even that she can't stay in front of anyone. She just can't she cannot guard the pick and roll. She can't guard the pick and roll because she can't fight over screens well, and she also will get bullied on switches. I think if she gets bigger, she'll be able to switch better because of her size. But right now, Caitlin Clark's awful as an off-the-ball defender on screens or as a pick and roll defender. Nalyssa Smith's just bad all around on defense. And the problem with Nalyssa Smith is sometimes she gets her body in the right place, and then instead of just standing there, which would have been a guaranteed stop, she'll jump and turn her body and foul every single time. The amount of unnecessary fouls she commits 2 unnecessary fouls a game. As in, she does all the right things and just fouls for no reason when there's no threat. And it is an issue. The unnecessary fouling is without question a pretty big issue when we're looking at players on defense. And again, the problem is that you've got Kelsey Mitchell, who's just not a very good defender. You got Caitlin Clark, who does certain things well on defense, but in general is not a very good defender. And you got Nalyssa Smith, who's the worst defensive big in the league. You can't hide them. Nalyssa Smith, if there is a ball there to be won, and Nalyssa Smith jumps, grabs the ball with power, she can rebound really well. She doesn't know. I don't think she knows what a box out is. The problem is that Nalyssa Smith is the 4th best player on this team. And she is somebody that is equipped to be the 1st or 2nd best player on her team. I think she'd be a good second option for a team. Because you basically need players around her to hide her flaws and a system that shows her strengths. And the problem is that you also, for the Fever, you have a point guard who's the same thing. You have a point guard who you need to play around, who isn't like this flawless player. Look, as great as Caitlin Clark is, there are certain systems she'll thrive in, certain systems she'll really struggle in. Like if you tell Caitlin Clark to try to go stand in that corner, she's not going to be good. If you tell her to try be a Rike and just start ISOing, she's not going to be that good. So like there are definite systems that's like players that will suit certain systems and players that won't suit certain systems. And that is the thing with Nalyssa Smith, is that she is a player that does not suit the Fever system. She's somebody, you can't hide 3 players on defense. And that's the problem with the Fever, is that with their starting 5, they have to hide 4. Like Katie Lou, as much as she tries, she's not a good defender. Caitlin Clark is not, again, Caitlin Clark is the second best defender in their starting 5. And for a team to be good, Caitlin Clark should be either the worst or the second worst defender on their team. On her team. Like for a team to be good, that's what she has to be. She has to be able to hide on defense, even just for her own energy. But the problem is that, again, she's the second best defender in starting 5. And Nalyssa Smith is the worst defensive player and is in an offensive position where she doesn't fit. I think she's got value. I think that you could very, very easily, for a team that wants Nalyssa Smith, and I don't know ego-wise if she'll do it, but the worst thing is that if you're looking at Connecticut don't have that draft pick anymore. They made that Marina Mabry trade. And I'm trying to think, is there a situation where you could get, like Connecticut might be trying to get off Marina Mabry at the end of the season, especially if they can keep all their players because they can't afford to keep them all. They might be trying to get off Marina Mabry. Maybe. I know she doesn't play much defense. Maybe Marina Mabry as a 6th man, although that is a max contract slot, to get her playing with Carrington. Because I think, honestly, playing with Carrington, coming on as a 6th man, a 6th player for that Connecticut team would be perfect. And I do think there's a scenario where she is the best offensive power forward coming off the bench right now and eventually becomes a good starter and is going to be at least a one-time All-Star in the WNBA. It's just not going to be in Indiana. And that's the thing where it's like, you're seeing it with new WNBA fans when people are criticizing, especially now that you're seeing more NBA fans actually kind of breaking down these games. There are situations where their good players don't fit. And that's not a knock on the player. There are good players that don't fit. And you have to be able to adapt your game, because the Aaliyah Boston that showed up at the start of the year did not fit with Caitlin Clark. The Caitlin Clark that showed up at the start of the year did not fit with Aaliyah Boston. Both of them adapted their games, and now they're probably the best point guard center combo in the WNBA. Obviously, it was way too early, and I'll put my hand up. I thought both of them were going to have to sacrifice too much, and it was never going to work. But the fact is, both of them changed their games, and it worked. But Nalyssa Smith doesn't do any of the little things well. She is a player who, if you watch these players, I'd say if you worked out these players, you would think she's going to be one of the best players in the W. Eye test wise, unbelievable. If she's in college, it was unbelievable. The problem with Nalyssa Smith is she's the 4th best player on her team, and she doesn't do any of the little things well. You can afford to not do any of the little things in basketball if you are the number 1 option. As in boxing out, positional sense off the ball, ability to cut, being like a 4th option where the ball's thrown to you and you got to do something. You don't have to be good at the little things if you are the number 1 option. Problem is that she's now the number 4 option and she doesn't do any of the little things. So I'm not sure plus minus whatever. And I'm not even saying the Indiana Fever are worse with her on the bench than on the floor, because they're not. Because again, her backup is Demiris Dantas. But when Temi comes back, they're better with Temi on the floor. Temi is just higher IQ. Temi's higher IQ. She plays harder. She runs. She will cut better. She'll run the floor better. She doesn't have the skill of Nalyssa Smith, but she's better fit for this team. And that is the thing, is the power forward, small forward position. The Fever cannot go in. If the Fever ever want to contend, Nalyssa Smith cannot be that starting power forward. Whether it's next year or they just want to ride off next year and go in 2026. But for me, I think that power forward, whether it be Neka or whether it be Satu, is probably the most important position for them to shore up next year. And unfortunately, it will probably look with Nalyssa Smith off the bench. And I do think, just as far as like just her own self, like her own like way she believes herself as a player, I don't think her coming off the bench is going to be good for either party. So what I would look to do is look to make look to make some sort of a trade on draft day, because there are athletes there. There are teams that will trade for Nalyssa Smith, and they will trade I'd say they would trade a relatively good pick for her. I'm not going to lie. I think there are teams that would trade a relatively good pick. So let's just say there's a hypothetical situation. You're at 7. The Chicago Sky wouldn't, but the Valkyries. Maybe the Valkyries get the 5th pick. And let's say who's on the board is like Sonia Citron. They don't get Olivia. They don't really want Olivia Miles because they might be happy taking another point guard. Maybe you can go to the Valkyries and just go, look, we're going to keep Nalyssa Smith. You can get her. She can be your all-star in your first year. She can go and be your all-star. She can be the star for your team, because you're not going to get anyone spectacular in the expansion draft. You can get your star. We can take number 5 and guarantee that we don't let Dominique Malonga go to Chicago. That's not a bad shout. And I do think her impact right away for a Valkyries, especially if they do get 5, will be a good fit. Will be a good thing. So that's just one of the that's just my opinion. And yeah, so shout out to Combos with Carter for making an entire breakdown about Nalyssa Smith being an issue for the Fever. I think we both have the same conclusion that she's not the right fit. Obviously, both. I'm not going to be reacting to his actual video, because you guys will be able to watch that, and the link will be in the description. So anyway, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.